Yo, what's up? Thanks for coming back and checking out the Paycheck to Profit podcast. I'm your host, Robert Johnson. Today we're going to kick it around with Landon Moore. And I just want to say right now, like Landon is crushing it. First and foremost, he is a family man, 100%. Absolutely love it. But he's also doing a direct-to-agent wholesaling company. He is a short-term rental owner. And this is all while he's working his 9 to 5. So guys, please do me a favor. Make sure to listen closely, take notes, and go back and re-listen if you need to. You will not regret it. So I'm not going to get into all the details because I want to hear directly from him. So Landon, thank you for taking the time to be here, man, and welcome to the show.
Oh, what's up, man? Thank you so much for that intro, and thanks for having me on here, man. I'm loving what you're doing and the content you're pushing. It's helping so many different people and so many different walks of life and avenue to help achieve their dreams of financial freedom. And the hard work you're putting in is paying off for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's little steps at a time, you know?
It is, man. It's that 1%. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Like the delayed gratification of all that hard work everyone puts in every day. You don't see the instantaneous dollar in your pocket or the bank account or whatever, but every podcast you do and all the content you push, like the monetization of it is really the fulfillment of it really is just seeing someone else either get their first deal because of something you said on a podcast or something you're promoting. And I know you're getting a ton of that feedback. I am too. And that's what's fulfilling. That's what fills the heart. The money's great, but the fulfillment of helping others achieve their dreams along the process that's what it's all about.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I love it. Love that's the first thing that you say.
Well, it's the reality, man.
It's so
Like,
you. It's so you.
well, it's just the thing is that I first came into like not only real estate, but anything with such a scarcity mindset of me, 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 me.
Yeah,
And it's, I have to do everything myself. And that's what we're taught, coming into this game is that it's an individual sport, if you will. And that couldn't be
right.
further from the truth. And now my mindset has completely flipped from an abundant mindset is that, 50% of a watermelon is way bigger and way better and way more fulfilling than 100% of a grape. And so the fact that you and I could do deals together and I can do deals with this person and help this person get their first deal, like we're going to help 30 to 40 people this year get their very first real estate deal.
Dude, that's
That to
awesome.
me is my currency. That's what's so fulfilling more than the dollars and cents. That's what's amazing.
Dude. Yeah, absolutely. That's so awesome. And as you're talking, I'm just thinking like it's so funny because like you and I know it firsthand and we're just like, the sub two community is so great about that abundant mindset. But you can step out of it and see all around us that there's still wholesalers and there's still people doing shady things and they're just
Oh
in
yeah.
that scarcity mindset. And some of them might be somewhat successful, but monetarily not really fulfilled, like you said. So there is a
Yeah,
huge
man,
difference
it's
in
so true.
being, yeah,
Yeah, there's a huge
dude,
difference in
yeah,
that the rooms that you're in, the people that you're surrounded with, there's always that saying that you are the conglomerate of the five people you're with, and I couldn't be more
yeah,
honored to meet guys like you, like and to be around people who are just doing deals and wanting to help each other. That's what it's all about. Is that it's not as if when I began this journey I did it alone. Like you had to have support of others, and as I sit here today, I have a business partner. I have 5 acquisition specialists that work on my wholesale team, as well as I have a closer that is dedicated solely to close the deals that my acquisition specialists tee up. And then I have a dispo
nice.
manager that handles all of the end game. So it's a conveyor belt of purely just teamwork. And going into this when I first got started, I thought I had to do it all. And it's
Right.
now being a year in, it's amazing to realize that you don't have to, nor should you do it all. You need to have a team in place and a support mechanism and a culture and all those different things that I know you know about and you're having success with. But when you first get started, that's you certainly think that you got to do it all alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I've surely had my time of, doing things on my own and
Yeah.
it didn't really go anywhere, nowhere that I was enjoying. So,
Right. That's exactly it,
yeah,
man. You don't
teamwork.
get to, and
Yeah.
that's just it. Like when you do things with others, much like when we were growing up, my most favorite rounds. I played a lot of golf in when I was a child and
Nice.
in high school. And my greatest and fondest memories of growing up golfing were with my friends and laughing and joking and in the sun, listening to music and having a great time. It wasn't the sole individual round by
Right.
myself or whatever it may be. It was when I was sharing and golfing with others. And it's the
Oh
same
yeah.
thing in real estate. Like I'm sure it's a business and sure we're doing it to make a dollar, but I'm doing it alongside my friends and colleagues that I get to laugh with, joke with, spend time with. I've stayed in Airbnbs with my business partners and mastermind and all these different things. And
Yeah.
it's not work because you're having fun the entire time. And that's what's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that's a really good way to put it, and translating it to golf. Because I mean, at the beginning, if you're not playing golf consistently, you're not going to be good. But you're going out and you're having fun. You're going to be with your friends, and over time, you're going to be better and better.
Yeah,
And
for
you
sure.
guys all grow together. So it's a really cool analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so really quick, you started talking about your wholesale, but before we jump into all of that operational stuff, why don't you share a little bit about what you're currently doing in your W-2 or your 9 to 5 job and what
Yep.
that looks like?
Yeah, certainly. I grew up in Oregon and I ended up going and I did well in
Nice.
high school and knew I wanted to do something more analytical, more math. And so I ended up getting my engineering degree from Oregon State University. So I work full time still to this day as a mechanical engineer here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so my quote unquote 9 to 5 is still that is a mechanical engineer. And so right after we get done with this podcast, I'm working on 2 projects on the East Coast. We're doing some Whole Foods grocery stores and doing the
Oh,
mechanical
really?
engineering of, the architects are the ones that make it look pretty. We're the ones that make it actually function and work so that when you're in the grocery store or in the building, you're comfortable, you're not too hot, you're not too cold, it's not humid, blah, 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 all the maths of everything.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so that's my 9 to 5 right now. And what's cool too is that a lot of it is just problem solving in that realm, in that space, much like we get to do in the real estate space. So like the transition from that to real estate is seamless because I'm solving problems. It feels like throughout every single transaction and every day with my W-2. And so there's a lot of congruency in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet that makes it a lot easier not having to change your mind too much from, like you're just in that problem solving mode, which is awesome.
Yeah, at all times. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Nice.
that's how I was trained in high school and then in college. They just train you on how to assess a problem in front of you and how to lay out what you
Right.
know, what you don't know, what you need to solve for, whatever, blah 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 blah, and you write it out. Very similarly in the real estate space, when I'm analyzing a real estate deal, I'm looking at what do I know, what is the current interest rate, how much do they owe, what's their payment currently, blah blah blah, and I'm mapping everything out, and I'm trying to find what's the missing piece here that's going to help them move on with their life and provide a solution for them. Is it a cash offer? Is it a traditional finance offer? Is it a creative offer like what you and I focus primarily into, and whether it's seller finance or subject to mirror wrap situations? So a lot of that. And two, it allows you to be creative. And so not every problem is solved the same way. And so you can look at it from different
Yep.
angles, much like engineering, which is what I'm doing. And yeah, so I work full time as a mechanical engineer. My wife works at W-2. She's a labor and delivery nurse. She's actually
Oh,
due
cool.
with our second, our little one, second little one. You can probably, you can't really see, but we have our first one right here behind the little tree thing. But my wife's due with our second one here like this week. She's like, it's
What?
so close. So it's going
Dude,
to
how did I
be,
not know that?
oh yeah. Yeah. So we have a 15-month-old.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Yeah. 15-month-old and then a newborn here in a week or two. So
Wow. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super exciting.
Dude, nice. So, it's just really quick, funny that you're like talking about mechanical engineering, you're doing Whole Foods projects. So, um, I don't know if I think early on when we first met, I told you what I was doing, but I work at a grocery store as well, but like at the corporate
Huh?
level. And so when you said Whole Foods, and I'm like, oh, okay, like you're the one that helps with, like you said, you're helped with the making it work and function in the
Yeah.
store.
Like if you want to
So
get
that's
super
great.
nerdy, it sounds like you're in that space. Like this is what how nerdy it gets. Is like sure
Yeah,
the
I love it. Keep going.
heating and cooling aspect of it is simplistic in nature, but when you get into a grocery store, that's what I primarily I'm the lead mechanical engineer for Amazon Grocery. And so
Oh, okay.
the
Yeah,
refrigerated cases, all of your frozen open door cases and
I
reach
knew
in
you were going there.
refrigerators, so on and so forth, those add moisture to the air, right? Those add humidity to the air. And so there's certain measurements that we have to categorize and maintain. There's certain what we call set points, much like in your house, like in here right now. It's probably 68, 70 degrees in here right now. That's considered dry bulb temperature. But there's also other characteristics of the air that's in your space right now. There's a wet bulb temperature, a relative humidity percentage, there's a dew point, there's all these different engineering nerdy things. And in a grocery space with all those refrigerated cases and adding that humidity, my main goal in every grocery store is to what's called dehumidify the space. And so there's a
Hmm.
specific dew point where condensation occurs on the cases. You know, when you open up a case and then water appears on the case after you shut the door? So my
Yeah.
job is to prevent that from happening. So, and it's super fun, and every space is different because you're in different climates. A grocery store in Florida is very different than a grocery store in Phoenix, Arizona, where I sit today.
Right.
And so a lot of that problem solving and engineering is a lot of that, a lot of what I'm doing.
Yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah.
That's really funny and real for me, like as I worked in grocery store most of my life.
Got it. Yeah, because
Nice.
you're in Portland, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so you've got your mechanical engineering. What's the scheduling like for that? Like, are you pretty flexible, or are you always like a set 9 to 5, or how does that necessarily work for you?
Yeah, I'm super grateful for the company that I work for. They allow a lot of flexibility with my schedule and my ability to be my own boss in the sense of not only work location. So I work a lot from right here that you're looking at. This is my at-home office.
Nice.
So I work primarily remote. My office is like 15, 20 minutes down the road. So if I ever need to go in or want to go in, I can. And then secondly, too, I get to choose my hours. So long as I complete my, 80 hours in a pay period. So every 2 weeks. So um, if I can complete that 80 hours, the remaining of the week or whatever it may be, I can flex off. And so
Right.
as it relates to that, for me, I'm a morning person. And so like this morning, I woke up at like 3:30. I went to the gym, I did my thing, and now I'm back and I logged on here before we met up this morning and knocked out a few of my emails, some outstanding tasks for the day, kind of slating the day and took some time away for this. And then I'll hop back into my W-2 and map out the rest of the week, get my people in place. I have like 5 or 6 people that are working underneath me that I'm getting them to design and do different things. And so making sure that they're energized, motivated, and know what their tasks are for the week. And then about 3:30, 4 o'clock is when I'll kind of check out from the W-2, and that's when I'll typically transition into my real estate endeavors and my entrepreneurship stuff of what I'm doing, and that really blends into my wholesale operation, my short-term rental consulting company, and my own properties that I own and managing them. Like today, I have to go over to one of them to shoot some YouTube content, as well as fix a couple little things while we have time. Because right now is the busy schedule as our Airbnbs, and so the vacancy is pretty low, and so we only have like a 4 hour window before
Mm.
the next guest checks in, which is great at one of the properties. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a jam packed day. I'm very intentional with my time.
Yeah.
I Google time block, so I'm sure you know what that is, but that's where, for the viewers, it's where I every evening in about 7:45, 8 o'clock, I will sit down on my phone here and I will map out my next day of tasks because I used to be very like checklisty. I would just have tasks of things that I need to get done, 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 done. And at the
Right.
end of the day, I was never fulfilled because I would never get all of them done. And I'd have a bunch for tomorrow. So I turned into more of a human doing instead of a human being. And I hated that feeling at the end of the day, just not being fulfilled. And so now what I'm doing is I'm assigning not only a task, but I'm assigning a time amount to that task. So for instance, I have this time blocked in here for an hour and a half, I think it is on there. And after that, I'm going to transition to the next thing. prior to this, I had my gym time blocked out. I had my travel time blocked out. I had a conversation with my wife blocked out. W-2 is blocked out. Like all of the various
Yep.
tasks and things every day is very intentional. And what I'm realizing is two things. One, I never fully am 100% on everything that I put in my time block, meaning I'm not always getting everything done to its fullest. I'm also more efficient at some things than I originally thought. And so, what it's really doing for me is just a cardinal direction of what I need to be going toward every single day. And it's a clear mind towards getting 1% closer to that end goal every single day. And that the end goal is financial freedom. The end goal is a bustling and fruitful wholesale company that everyone on the team is fulfilled, and retire my wife from her W-2. So I'm working towards a lot of big things right now. And me being intentional with my time is a requisite to, or prerequisite to fulfillment towards those things.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. I love time blocking. The concept of it, it just makes way more sense. And
Yeah.
for those listening, if you're not using time blocking right now, take what you heard from Landon, but also go Google it and
Yeah.
get a little bit more information on how to implement it, because it will change your life as far as efficiency and production. So definitely gold.
Yeah. I mean, it allows you to really do, it allows you to really do an audit of what you're doing. A lot of us
Right.
say
Yeah.
a lot of us say we're busy. A lot of us say we're productive. And this really puts your foot to the fire as to looking at your schedule of like, oh my gosh, I have 6 hours, I have 4 hours of just BS time that I'm not actively being productive toward my goals. I have my freaking
Right.
goals every day right here for 2024. I don't know if you can see it, but I can't at all. But
No.
have them all written out. There you go. You can kind of see it now. There you go. And so for me, it's a reminder every day is like, let's look at those goals. Is what I'm doing today actively? Look at that. Exactly. And that's just it, man. Yeah. Like mine's right there. And so for me, I'm just translating my calendar into getting me closer to those goals every day. And a lot of those
Yeah.
things are coming to fruition because of the delayed gratification and because of the time blocking I'm doing right here. Because having a
Yeah.
W-2,
Yeah.
that takes up a lot of time. I know you know that. You're going to head to yours here
Yep.
shortly. And so you have to be intentional with your time. I'm so intentional that I have to Google time block time with my wife and my family time, because
Yeah.
if I don't,
Me too.
this thing will dominate my life, and I will continue to just put my head down and just grind. And I need to always have that yin and yang to give her time and my family their time that they deserve. That ultimately is why we're all doing this. We're not just doing this to suffer. We're doing this to enjoy
Yeah.
time with our family. So
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a path I wasn't planning on going down, but I love it, and let's keep going down it. So one thing really quick, because you just said it, but you time block and make time for your wife and your family. I do that as well. So like, we have date night and everything. Like,
yeah,
some people do that, but we also have specific times throughout, the day. Like, dinner time is always sacred. Like making sure that there's family time, things like that. At first, I don't know if you encountered this too, but when I first started doing it, um, it was uncomfortable.
mm,
And my wife, didn't like the idea of like being a thing in the calendar. I don't know if you encountered that too, but it was, it was a good learning lesson for both of us. And, over time and like explaining why I do it. And, like it's not to make her like a, a thing, but to
yeah.
really dedicate and make sure that I'm focused on balance.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a great point. It's a great transitioning point, because I just had a conversation with a gentleman yesterday, and I know your significant other. Are you married? Is it your wife?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So your wife
Yep.
supports you, and she makes you feel like you have wind behind your sails and what you're doing and the endeavors and your entrepreneurship and what you're doing. And that's a beautiful thing to have, because not a lot of people do. I was just speaking with a guy a couple of days ago on my in my Instagram, and he voiced with me about how his girlfriend was concerned about the sacrifices he's making, or rather the time he's spending working on his real estate thing, and he doesn't
Right.
feel supported. And I just got back from a trip with Pace Morby here 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago to Utah, and then we went to Temecula, California for a mastermind. And it's funny you mentioned that, because we were talking about relationships and time blocking
Mm-hmm.
and the support and all those things, because right now I'm now a father, I'm also a husband, and I'm building this out right now, and I'm evolving as a man, as a husband, as a father, and changing, and I'm having to change my habits. My whole system's different. And um, the reality is my wife, we've been married now 9 years, didn't marry the person that's sitting here in this podcast right now. She married a different man. And so as I've evolved, she's marrying and seeing a different person that she has to fall in love with again, and support and push. And so I have to give her grace. I have to give her patience in that process in what we're doing, knowing she has my support and I have her support through that process. And we have to check in with each other very regularly as it relates to our relationship, as it relates to our daughter, and then now our next one, and making sure that we feel heard and we feel supported. And as it relates to like what I'm doing when I go on these little trips or when I'm doing things, it took a long time for her to realize that everything I'm doing is for us, and it doesn't
Right.
monetize immediately. It doesn't immediately put, the Gucci loafers on her feet, or whatever, but it ultimately is going to lead to a place of financial freedom that will retire her from her W-2 as a nurse, and allow our children to go to swim class and we're fine, and go to music class and we're fine. And every little thing that we're doing is for them, and there's sacrifices that come along with that. Like that trip for 4 or 5 days, or 3, 4, 5 days with Pace, was a lot, being 37 weeks pregnant. That was tough for her
Oh yeah.
to accept. But coming out of that, she saw the benefits of me going on that trip and what's coming out of it. And I can't tell you, man, how many times she says, I see it now. I see it now. And the amount of support I have behind me in terms of what we're doing is, you have to have a partner that supports you and makes you feel like you have the wind behind your sails. It's so tremendously imperative to your success and your why. Like my why is so deep, and why I'm doing all these little things, and she's a huge part of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love it. Yeah. That yeah, it resonates a lot with me because, I just went to the Golden Ticket and my
Yeah.
wife had a surgery like about 2 weeks before leaving. And it was kind of like when we talked about it before the surgery, we knew like, okay, it's borderline, it's going to be good for her, like where she's okay and like can move around and things and can get back to normal, or could go the other way. But we had to make a decision before, obviously. And the support was there, and we have other people around us that if we needed some support for her to, come out. My daughter's old enough, thankfully, that she did a lot around the house. And, it was like we
Okay.
came together, we made it happen, because if I wasn't able to go there, there's so much that I would have missed out on, like connecting with
Exactly.
people and being in the right room with the right people, and so it's crazy, the things that you have to do, but like you come together as a family and you unite in that vision and like working towards that goal. And now everybody's kind of getting there, like you said. It's an evolution of it.
It is. It is a complete evolution, and it's going to continue to evolve as I evolve and as you evolve with your family and what you're providing and
Yep.
what you're doing. And I'm looking forward to seeing your journey as a part of that. And I watch what you're doing and seeing the success that you're having, and admire that, and know that she supports you and pushes you, which is beautiful. And I think a lot of people need to see that, because there's
Yeah.
so many out there that are trying so hard, and not, I wouldn't say failing, but struggling and not seeing the other end of the light, I guess, if you will. And having that support mechanism throughout the entire process from your significant other, and um, is just wind behind the sails. And yeah, it's so
Yeah.
fulfilling having her support me. So
Yeah. All right, we took our detour.
yeah,
It
part of it. Yeah,
was a
I'll
good
go all
detour
over,
though.
man. I could go all over.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, it's great. So yeah, I wanted to jump back and ask about with the wholesaling operation. So you're doing direct to agent. So for people listening, if you're not familiar with that, it's just, they're on market deals. Their team is working with agents that have a property listed, and they are looking, like he said earlier, for a solution for that seller. They're not, my understanding is you're not going in with one thing in mind. You are finding a problem and then finding the solution through that conversation. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah, that's a great
that's
point.
about
So,
accurate,
I
right?
mean, yeah, I would say we're leading with a mind of service. And so what that really means at the core of it is we're trying to understand why they're selling and what the motivation is behind there. And how we can provide the best package solution for them that maximizes the wins. The wins meaning the seller gets what they need and want, as well as the agent gets compensated for their effort, their time, and what they're doing, as well as me as the investor. I can also too secure and acquire a cash flowing asset. And or if I don't keep the property, I can then package that up and supply it to someone like you as an end buyer, let's say, who does invest in that area for that asset type, whether it's a multifamily property or a single family home or an RV park or a mobile home park or whatever that may be. And so when we're speaking to these agents and sellers, we do some direct to seller stuff with some expired listings. But primarily, I would say our primary marketing, outbound and inbound, is all direct to agent outreach. And so these are on market properties on Zillow, on Redfin, on Realtor.com, whatever it may be that you guys all have access to, that our team is specializing in, that we're just having conversations from one human to another human, being the other agent, the gatekeeper, and figuring out what's forcing them to sell. Some properties that we're acquiring are owned what's called free and clear. So there's no mortgages, no debt against the home. It's just it's owned free and clear. So we're figuring out, okay, when you sell this home, what are you guys doing with all of that money? That $400,000 or $500,000, whatever the home is selling for. Would you be interested in avoiding a capital gains hit? Meaning, if they sell that home, they're liable for how much they gained based on when they bought it and what they're selling it for, that difference. And so in some instances, a lot of the homes we're buying were previous investment properties for that investor. And so we're able to save them some capital gains exposure by purchasing it using what's called seller financing. Or if there is a mortgage on the property, we're able to maximize the purchase price by simply taking over the existing debt on the home. That's known as a subject to. And so that's primarily what we're focusing on, be it seller finance, be it subject to. And, a lot of that is on market properties, but also we have some direct to seller expired listing stuff. So meaning an agent had a property listed for 6 months and they didn't secure selling the home. And so the listing agreement with that agent expires. And at that moment, the property goes off market. And so we can then at that point contact the seller directly and then work directly with the decision maker and see what they need and see what forced it not to sell. What was the holdback from there? What solution was not provided to them that maybe we can supply? Is that a cash offer? Is that a creative offer? Were they stuck on price? Was it timeline? Was there a tenant that they have or something going on? So that's really what we're focusing on right now. And we're expanding that. We're really expanding right now, which is fun. I love scaling. It has its challenges, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you. Great explanation of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I am curious though, like how much of the work are you doing in the business right now instead of like compared to on the business? And you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier about your team size, and
Yeah.
you even mentioned that you were doing all of it by yourself at one point. So it's like,
Yeah.
how has that changed over time, and what does it look like now?
Yeah. When I first got started back, I've doing wholesaling, I should say. I started about a year ago is when I really started to educate myself and understand um, how to properly serve sellers and agents and figure out solutions for them. And I would do it all myself. And what that means is I would find the leads. I would cold call the leads. I would manage the leads because it's never a one call close. There's always multiple steps in that process to get them to agree to a contract, right? And then I would close the leads, and then I would write up the purchase contract, And then I would open up escrow and manage the escrow process during the due diligence inspection period and all those different things, as well as then I would go find a buyer,
Wow.
get the assignment contract signed, and then manage that. And I remember at one point, and this was me solo dolo, and I remember at one point, August of 2023, I had 4 in escrow at one time at different stages. One of them I was keeping that I still own as a short-term rental property up in Kalispell, Montana, and then 3 of which I was wholesaling. We had a buyer that was wanting to back out in one, a big inspection thing that came up in the middle of due diligence, and then a seller who had their cell phone shut off and we were unable to get a hold of them. And I'm managing all these different pieces at once at different stages while also trying to furnish a short-term rental. And I'm like, my wife is like, you are insane right now. Sure, the money was great at the end of the month, right? When you get those checks, but the reality is like, that's not sustainable nor scalable. And so I have goals of scaling into owning $1 million wholesale company and operation, and me doing it by myself and not having the pieces in place that allow us to fruitfully grow at a scalable and realistic pace. I would run myself ragged and get burnout. And so it was at that point at the end of September or end of August, early September, that I realized I need the right pieces in place, because I was literally only operating out of a Google spreadsheet, a Google Doc spreadsheet at that point. I had no CRM set up. I had no dialer set up. I had nothing. It was just literally me and this. And
Wow.
I'll tell you, man, it was amazing. That process, that journey, I learned so much. I learned what to do. I learned how to fail, and I learned how to accept failure as a part of that process. And then at that point in September, I realized I need partners. I need pieces in place. And that's when I found my partner, and we found each other. Chris Geddes. I know you know who he is. He is a tremendous resource to me and my team and to everyone else in the community. But, adding him to the operations, it was just him and I for about 2 months, a month and a half, I would say. And at that juncture, I was the one on the acquisition standpoint. So I was still out there finding the leads, cold calling, and closing these deals. And then he was on the disposition side. So dispositions meaning finding the end buyers that we wholesale to. And so if you look at it, A to B, B to C, he's now taking care of B to C. But what I learned about him is that he has so much like behind the computer screen, so smart, that he built out our entire how to get leads. He set up our drip campaigns. He set up our phone, all the different things that made the A to B for me so much easier. And one of the things that he said to me in October of last year, he goes, my goal is to fire you by February of next year. And
Nice.
what that really means is replace me in my role, so I am not spread thin on the bandwidth of what I have. So fast forward to today, and it's February 2024. We have, I believe, 4. We're hiring 2 more right now, but 4 cold callers, acquisition specialists. So those are the ones on the outbound lead generation standpoint that are out there calling agents, talking, managing it, setting up 3-way calls with our closer, the agent and the seller, and just managing those leads. Chris is automating the leads to them every single time. They're set up on a power dialer, ripping through calls and going through there. Our closer is now in place. That was my old role that I evolved to. Now I'm removed from that, not entirely, but 95% of it I'm removed. And we have a closer in place now. And then Chris still handles the disposition standpoint. So for me, my role within this wholesale company has now evolved to where I'm not really integral as a part of the deal flow process unless I need to be. Bigger fires to fight, or if I need to step in and close a deal when our closer is either busy or tied up with another closing. That's the goal, is to find the bottlenecks and provide resources for those bottlenecks along the process. And right now I'm no longer the bottleneck where I used to be. We have the closer in place. We have the acquisition specialist. So my goal right now is to build out as much inbound lead generation as I can. So, like if you have a lead that you're like, Landon, I have this amazing lead here in Portland, Oregon that, I'm not sure what I want to do with. It does have a killer interest rate. I think it might work for a sub 2. I spoke with the agent, and you need me to come in and close that deal. I could build that out and go in there and hop on and make that call because I have the time and bandwidth to do so and help people get there, not you, but get their first deal. And so right now I'm building out our inbound lead generation. And those would be JV opportunities, joint venture opportunities that my team can either find you the buyer, or they can close the deal for you and find the buyer for you and get you paid. And so we're really working at inbound and outbound right now in terms of our wholesale operation exclusively. And we're just starting to, we're doing this both on the subject to standpoint, but also the seller finance. And we just started dipping our toes into the cash space right now. We are in negotiations with a seller who owns 28 single family homes in the Raleigh Durham
Oh,
triangle of North
wow.
Carolina. And so we're in negotiations on a cash offer for all of those. Those are all owned free and clear. And so they all need rehab at some level. And so we're going through, we have a guy boots on the ground out there right now that's walking the properties and going to get us the reports and get us the photos and all those things that we can supply a cash offer and then go that route. And so we're building that out as well. And then simultaneously, what we learned synergistically with that wholesale business is we've built out a gator lending business. A gator lending business is like a transactional lending business for smaller chunks of money, say up to 15K, $15,000, to where we can lend that money to, say, a fix and flipper or an investor who wants to buy and hold the money, that has their money tied up elsewhere, who needs short, 2 weeks to a month lending. We can step in and lend that money on there for a pretty decent return, 40-50% return. And so building out that pipeline as well is what I'm focusing on too. So that's how I've evolved in the business, is now I can work on scaling the business without being in the trenches on the day to day managing the business, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does, and that's amazing. Hearing where you're at now and what your vision is, what you're doing. I smiling a lot during that, or like kind of like thinking in my head. There's a lot of similarities to where I was. I was more on your partner side a little bit, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Cause you're more of the integrator
um,
in your business, right?
yeah, yeah.
Got
And so, I partnered up with Chasen, and
it. Yeah.
he's
Love
the
him.
closer, and we've got that side going, and we built out the direct to agent with the CRM and the
Nice.
follow-ups and all
Yeah.
that. And as I'm building it, a lot of this stuff isn't turned on yet, but in my mind, we have forms and surveys set up so that JV opportunities can come in, because that's exactly like a channel that we want to focus on down the
Yep.
road. And so it's like, I was just loved hearing what you're doing, and also kind of like confirmation for me, like, okay, I'm on the right track too.
Yep. Yeah. That's exactly why we do these. We have these conversations, to seeing what others are doing. And that's what's
Yeah.
beautiful, to tie it all back in, is like, that's what's beautiful about our community, is that we can have these conversations candidly and full transparency, because we want to help and support each other. And I think that's really the summation of this community, is that everyone just wants to help each other out and grow as a whole. And so yeah, if
Yep.
there's anything I can pour into you and what I'm doing, and I would love to learn and get you connected with my integrator, Chris, to see how you guys can collaborate more, to see
Yeah.
how we can help each other out to do more deals together. Because that's what it comes down to, is just continuing to build out that deal pipeline and that deal flow. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I'd love to connect with them too.
yeah, for sure.
Um, okay, so jumping back into, so you've got all the direct to agent, you've got I think you kind of already answered one of the questions that I had, but as you're kind of transitioning, you mainly focus on subject to and some seller finance, but now you're starting to do some cash deals. My question was, what's next when interest rates start going back down, because subject to becomes a little bit more, um, it's not as valuable, I guess, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it's not as going to be as prominent or dominant in that space for an option that works for buyers and sellers.
Yeah, I disagree, because I think that as a whole, subject to is a tool in the tool belt, much like cash is, much like any other avenue to purchase a home and acquire a home. And so I heard a stat here recently that 67% of all VA loans were taken out in the last 4 years. And so what that means
Wow.
is in the last 4 years, we had there's a period of time where those are tremendous interest rates. And if you know anything about a VA loan, that's typically 100% financing, meaning they're not putting any down payment. And with the market having turned a little bit, right now there's a lot of low equity solutions or situations rather that we can provide solutions
Hmm.
for. And, I think there's always going to be a seller who needs to sell their home, whether it be a foreclosure process. Those are going to be huge in the next few years. I do believe that. And so when you have a VA in foreclosure, they have 100% financing. They don't have a ton of equity. And when they start to miss payments, it only stacks up against them. And so that's where subject to can be a resource for them. And then secondly, job relocation or job loss. Divorce is a big one for us right now. And these are a lot of motivating pain points that we're noticing when we're purchasing these homes is that these sellers need to sell their homes. It's not necessarily that they just want to because they want a bigger white picket fence, let's say. However, as we progress into the year and interest rates do potentially drop a little bit, for us, we're going to see more hybrid situations. So subject to and a seller finance portion. And so that's where we're going to give them a down payment on that seller finance portion, and the remaining equity we can place and make payments to them every single month. So I still think it's a tremendous blue ocean out there for subject to opportunities. And as well as too, seller finance isn't going to go anywhere either. And so we're doing a lot of seller finance up in Montana right now. My partner Chris just closed on a 3% seller finance deal in Billings, Montana that he held on to as a long-term rental for himself. And so it doesn't much matter what the market's doing, what interest rates are doing. I still think we have tremendous opportunity to still provide a solution to a seller and serve them and help them create a win-win-win. That conversation comes up, that question comes up, but I think the solution is we just need to be more strategic in how we can best serve the seller to get them a winning solution, even when the interest rates are going down.
Yeah. No, that's really good point. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. We're not going in with, hey, this is the solution for a problem that I don't even know you have.
Yeah.
It's
You got to
really,
find.
these are like yeah, yeah. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, right? We want to help those people that have a problem. This isn't going to be a solution for the person that is just in a good position, could sell on market, if they just wait a little bit longer, or they have enough equity and they don't want to do it this process. They want to, let it ride a little bit. Like, they don't have that motivation like somebody in foreclosure and somebody
Right.
going through divorce or moving. So
Yeah, I
really
remember I did a three-way
that's
call here recently with a seller in Boise, Idaho. Agent, seller, me on the phone. And this
uh-huh.
seller had received, I think, 20 subject to offers on their home. Freaking cutie pie home, 2.25% interest rate. And we're on this call for 35 minutes. And this is the closing call. And I had the opportunity to close that deal at any point in that call to lock it down, get it under contract, and we probably could have got a $12,000 to $15,000 wholesale fee to an end buyer in that market. But 35 minutes into that call, I quickly realized that this seller isn't necessarily selling because they need to. There was no motivation behind the curtain. There was no pain. There was no job loss. There was no divorce. The only thing they had is the wife just wanted a different white picket fence. This wasn't her white picket fence. She just wanted a different house. And so for me, as a fiduciary and as an ethical person, we had a very abrupt, transparent conversation as it relates to what they're doing. And I'm like, hey, I'm not certain that this strategy is the best fit for you with your goals of doing this, this, and this. You're selling your home at a time that doesn't make much sense right now, the way that you're wanting to sell it. If you are able to wait a year, um, um, you're going to see a completely different landscape in the real estate space, that you're going to be able to sell this, capitalize on some equity here, and not be strapped on your down payment and buy your next home and all those different things. Interest rates are going to come down. And so I backed away completely. And for a few reasons. One, just out of respect to the seller, but then also two, building a relationship with that agent and cultivating that for other deals. We've now done 3 or 4 deals that because of that one phone call of me saying, hey, I'm not sure if we're the best fit and I don't want to set you up for headache. I don't want you to do this and then a year later regret doing it and it prohibits you from living your life moving forward. And so that's how our team operates, is full transparency and understanding holistically the situation that the sellers are in, so that we're not setting them up for failure 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the road, that of a decision they made today that is going to strap them for the future. Because the relationship with that agent in showing that is going to be way more fruitful and allow us to do way more deals together that they're going to pocket send to us. Like I'm negotiating one right now precisely that came out of that one phone call. She trusts me more than anyone else, versus the other people are just sending blanket offers and hoping that they accept it. If they don't, they'll just move on to the next one. I actually build the relationships with the agents. My team builds the relationships with the agents that we can do more than just one deal of. And so, yeah, relationships are key. Transparency is key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
It just works, man. And also too, at the end of the day, I feel way better having not felt like I was a car salesman. My goal is to never feel transactional. My goal is to never feel like, oh, I got one. I got them. Right. It's not that.
Right.
It's, hey, is this a good fit for you? You know, I touched on it earlier, that property up in Kalispell, Montana, that I own as a short-term rental, 2.5% interest rate, VA loan. And the seller was going to write a check for $500 to sell his house after paying his agent, if I brought an agent, plus closing costs. And I was able to come in. I gave the seller $15K. That paid off his truck, so he has no more truck payment, and helped him move from Kalispell, Montana to actually Phoenix, Arizona. And I paid the agent her commission, Chelsea. We've now done multiple deals together, that agent, because of that, how I was able to provide a solution. And that was the best solution for them because their home wasn't selling and it was heading towards winter. And winter in the north is hard to sell a home because not a lot of people are going to want to move when there's snow on the ground or it's 2 degrees outside. And so we were able to provide a solution. If the agent got paid, they won. The seller got way more money than they were expecting to receive. They paid off a truck and other debt and got out of a burden that they didn't want anymore. The wife had moved earlier, and so she was already gone down here in Arizona. Mm-hmm. So it's like, and then I get a property that's going to make me between 75, 80K in the first year in terms of revenue as a short-term rental property. And so I win as the investor too, because I get to leverage that 2.5% interest rate. And so creative finance for the win in most cases, if you can find the right situation that the seller needs to sell their home, the agent is helping them sell it but can't sell it, you can come in and be the person that serves them and build a relationship with that agent for many deals beyond that one.
Yeah.
So,
dude, yeah, that's the power of creative finance right there.
It really is, man.
Okay, so we're coming up close to time. I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple things. So we already talked about, how you manage your time and everything, and I think we got some really good tips out of that. But what would be your suggestion for somebody who wanted to get started? What's from what you've learned, what should be the first step for somebody that wants to get started in real estate?
Well, so I began getting into real estate about 5 years ago. So coming up on 6 years ago here in a couple months. And where I started was through listening to every podcast, reading every real estate book, and just understanding and absorbing all of the information. I began going to meetups. And that's what I wanted to touch in on here with you is if you're in an area where real estate meetups are happening, I would implore you to please go to those meetups. I can't understate the importance of the relationships of those meetups that can happen, and how you can benefit from one another and being in the room of people who are having the conversations. I remember early on, I'm reading all of the Bigger Pockets books, listening to the podcast regularly, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all of the books. And that's what I did. Because I couldn't do anything, I was learning. And when I was working, I was AirPods in, listening to podcasts while I'm doing my engineering. And then I would attend meetups. And I remember going to the first one, nervous, because I didn't own any real estate. I was like interested in this thing and going to this, like, oh my gosh, there's going to be some daunting, 65-year-old old white dude that has like 100 homes and multifamily that he doesn't want to talk to me. And then you just get there and you meet people just like you, and meet people who are 2 steps ahead of you and 5 steps ahead of you. And you start networking. And I remember leaving the first meetup and feeling energized, like I just worked out. And I'm like, this was amazing. This fuels me. Like, I'm a very extroverted person. And so those environments and talking with people, like when I met you at the Golden Ticket, like that's my circus. That's my paradise. It's like, let's navigate, let's network. And you leave energized. And I remember leaving there energized, went home, back to my routine, books, podcasts, right? But one thing that was interesting that happened is the next meetup was coming up. And the old me tried to self-sabotage and find a way out of going again because you're nervous again. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to go. I don't know if I should go again. I didn't really provide much value to anyone there. And, no one really I didn't get anything from any blah, 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 whatever it is. And I remember I had to flip a switch in my head and say, you just go because you have to. And I went. And again, same thing, felt energized coming back. And this happened for a year. Like, I just was nervous to go to these meetups. And what came out of it is I have one of my best friends. He owns like 9 Section 8 housing homes in Cleveland, Ohio. He now owns a multifamily here locally. Him and I partnered on a short-term rental here locally in Phoenix, Arizona. And so you develop these relationships with people who hold you accountable because they're going to be there. And you start developing your friendships, and you at that time, you can move out of your current friend group and the conversations that they're having. If they're not talking about what you want to become and who you want to be and all that, is that going to these meetups is you can find your people and you can find your culture, and you can have conversations at a different level and talk about these different things while simultaneously learning through podcasts and books. And that's what worked for me, is just podcasts, books, and going to meetups, podcast books, going to meetups. And over time, you develop relationships and build out your Rolodex here while listening to podcasts and books and networking. And so if you're just getting started, I would say you need to go find your meetup, whatever that may be. It doesn't have to be a sub-2 creative finance meetup. That's not what mine was. Mine was on biggerpockets.com. And I looked up on the events tab, and there was one here 15 minutes north of where I'm sitting right now. And it's still happening today. And funny enough, you want to hear a full circle. This is perfect timing, Robert, is the gentleman that hosts it. He texted me about 2 weeks ago, with him, a number I didn't recognize, and me. And he goes, "Hey, Landon, it's Travis. I got Brian in here. He thinks he may have potentially a sub-2 deal in Glendale, but he wanted to chat with you because I know that's what you're doing." I hop on a call the next day, or that day, with Brian, that gentleman that's in the text thread. No clue who he is. Turns out he has a home in Glendale, Arizona, 2.25% interest rate, and he wants to purchase it and be the end buyer, sub-2, so he can move his parents in there. So then we set up a 3-way call with the agent, me and him, so he can listen to the call. And I close the deal. We get it under contract. We're in escrow right now for that deal. And I got to facilitate that because of me showing up at that meetups every single time 5-6 years ago. It led to me building a relationship with the person who created the meetup. And now he sent me a relationship to do a deal. And so the power of those meetups is so real. It is life-changing. You're one relationship away from changing the complete trajectory of your life. So I guess if I could yell through this camera here is to connect with like-minded people and go to meetups.
Dude,
Isn't that wild?
that's a really cool story.
Yeah.
What was that?
Isn't that wild? It's crazy how full circle
It is.
it comes around.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's funny. You kind of hear certain things like that here and there. Like, I've heard a few people talk about, like, oh, somebody came back after this, but like, it's so true. Like, you're planting those seeds and they won't grow and grow and grow to the point of like this until could be 6 months. It could be 5 years.
Yep.
But you never know. And you continue doing that work so that you have your crops growing and
Bingo.
working for you down the road.
Yep. Yeah. And what I realized too is that everyone even me, has some level of value that you can provide at any one point. Maybe the value is accountability. Maybe the value is a partnership with someone who can be a private money lender. Maybe you don't have the money to lend right now, but you know someone who does that you could connect them with. Or maybe you're really good at on the phones, but you're terrible at everything else, you know? And so there's value that you can provide. You just have to figure out, what do you have? What do you need? And how we can get to know each other to I can help you get what you need. And that all starts at meetups. It all starts with relationships.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, that's a good way to wrap it up.
Sweet.
I do have one random question, so I usually ask a random question at the end of the show.
Okay.
So for you, I'm curious, what is the number one golf course on your bucket list that you need to get to?
Bucket list golf course. There's so many. I honestly, it doesn't even matter. What I've learned now is it matters to a certain extent. I'm a little bougie when it comes to golf courses, but it matters who I'm with.
Okay.
I played so much golf
Okay.
since I'm 4 years old, but it would be a round of golf with my dad. It would certainly be a round of golf with my dad. I think if I could play Pebble Beach, that would be something that I would remember for the rest of my life. But I've been blessed to be able to play some amazing golf courses and with my dad, Hawaii and all these different things. And I think Pebble Beach would be the one that I would love to figure out a way to make that happen and be able to bring my dad along for that trip. So Pebble Beach is the one. And that's funny enough. That's where Pace got married. I don't know if you knew that. Pace and Morby got
Oh, no,
married
I didn't.
18th green of Pebble. He's played it a few times. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. All right. Well, dude, thank you so much. Like I said at the beginning, so much value and just a lot of good information in here. So thank you for pouring all that out and for everybody listening.
Yeah, I think lastly, Robert, anyone who's listening to this that stayed for a freaking hour, thank you, number one, because Robert's doing something amazing here, and he's gonna freaking kill it in the game and in the podcast space and provide so much value to everyone here. But if you are working a W-2 like I am, and you have dreams and goals of more and financial freedom, is that start today. The 1% you start today, whether it's you read a book, you listen to 30 minutes of a podcast at 1.2x, whatever it may be, and you work towards your goals is going to make you so much more happy and fulfilled. And you can do it. I believe in you, because if I can do it, you certainly can do it. And you just have to be intentional with your time and working in the 5 to 9 hours. That 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. hour window is going to allow you to get that financial freedom. And I believe in you, and I'm here to support you. I know Robert is as well. And so if there's anything either him and I can do, we would love to help you get your first deal and help you on that trajectory. But help you help us. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Everybody else, we'll see you on the next episode.